Hi, Apoorva. It's a great pleasure to meet you. My name is Daljeet, and I am a co-director of Auroville Film Festival. A very warm welcome to you from the Auroville Film Festival.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here.
Yes, Apoorva, my first question to you, that Kanya, the film, is so relatable and absolutely beautiful film. Uh, are the menstruation experience shared by Kanya, they are based on your own experience, or you have done extensive research for that?
First of all, I'm very glad that the festival enjoyed Kanya. It is most definitely based on experiences that I've had growing up in India. As you might know, in India, swimming as a skill set is something that you don't learn from a very young age. I was aspiring to become a swimmer much later in my life when I was in my teenage years. And I remember getting into swimming more sort of professionally when I got my first period. And that was sort of a big deal in my family. And they decided to stop me from pursuing swimming because they were worried that I would become too masculine after this. And yeah, and I pretty much had to let go of the idea of becoming a swimmer. I think it had an impact on me, not only because of what happened to me, but I've heard stories from other friends of mine or acquaintances about how menstruation is such a taboo topic, to the point where even my mom, the way she was explained about menstruation when through my grandmom was that menstruation is just a dog bite. So that's how my mom knew what it was, until she actually got to experience it herself and realized that it's actually not a dog bite. It's uh, this question of why does it have to be a taboo topic, and why do they not have any open conversations about it, sort of led me to the premise of Kanya.
Great. You have really challenged the stereotype through this film. I uh, Kanya's mindset, her feeling of shame, confusion, agony, misery are beautifully captured in your story. Was it your intention to raise awareness among people regarding the social and cultural conflicts a girl goes through during puberty?
Yeah, I think one of the main reasons why I wanted to do it was to raise some social questions, mainly from the perspective of the changes that are happening in the body of the woman is overlooked for all the rituals and sort
Mm.
of you know practices around what's happening in her body. So for me, that is very problematic, because you don't ask the person who's going through these changes how they're feeling, what they're feeling, and try to make them feel safe. So and I think more than the social questions, it's the inner dissonance that the character goes through, which was more interesting for me. And that's why you don't see any dialogues. You kind of understand how she's feeling just from seeing her, and her not asking these questions. And it was done intentionally to raise that sort of feeling of discomfort, not only in the minds of the people who go through these, like who are mainly women, uh, but also the people around it who form these rituals, for them to understand that it's not easy to go through something like this without any context.
Yeah, I just wondering how a one woman tells the about all the rituals, and when their daughters get this puberty, but because they themselves have gone through that situation, but I
Hmm.
think it's cultural norms which makes them to repeat it again and again and again. I
Yeah.
Yeah, so that is
My perspective is I understand where the rituals are coming from. Like, I do get it that it was. done traditionally for a different reason. Like, at least in my community, the reason why these rituals happened was back in the day when my great grandmother was 13 and she got this. Her family had this ceremony so that she can let the rest of the community know that, hey, my daughter is ready to start a family. And that's how she met my great grandfather. And if you think about it, the difference between my grandmother and my great grandmother was only 13 years. So
Oh,
back then, child marriage was legal, and the reason why they did it was because of this, like so that the rest of the community can know about it. And we anyway have kind of come away from that a lot, and nobody accepts child marriage anymore. So
yes,
the rituals have stuck on because of um the fact that, okay, there is something special about a girl transitioning into a woman, which is great. Like, it is there in different cultures. You see it in Jewish culture, you see it in Islamic culture, but the way it is done here has a different context, which we've already eradicated. Child marriage doesn't exist anymore. So there could be a different way to celebrate this,
yeah.
rather than having it traditionally for that is uncomfortable for people like me. I wouldn't say that other people were uncomfortable. It's just obviously something that's a personal opinion. But yeah.
But not being participant in to such traditional ceremonies can lead to conflict within families. Like,
uh, I think it does. Like, when it happened to me, I was too young to have any kind of opinion on it. But when it happened to my sister, who is actually the lead actor of Kanya,
okay, oh,
and
she's your sister.
so it's a sort of a family affair in a way, the movie. So when it happened to her, I remember telling my family, just let's keep it small. There's no need to sort of have this whole thing and make her feel uncomfortable. And my parents were okay with it, and I'm grateful to have parents who are a little bit more liberal, and they understand where I was coming from. And they actually did make a smaller ceremony and did not make it as uncomfortable as it was for me. So yeah.
So, how your parents reacted to your film and your community, your known like
Mhm.
friends and
I think for most of them it was sort of a relief that somebody was able to voice out
uh-huh.
a perspective, that they would otherwise not be able to do, because it always leads to some kind of conflict within the family where somebody thinks that your perspective is too progressive. And my that was also the reason why I made Kanya in a way where, like, it is rooted in the traditions. You don't see her uh, sort of not being modern in the way she looks. Like, the idea was to kind of root it in the same perspective that the family is used to, and sort of show them that maybe there is something that we can talk about,
Mm. And
with these rituals.
yeah, and couple of metaphors are so strong which you have
Mhm,
used in the film. Those were really, really beautiful. Like how you captured that and
mhm.
showing that conflict within the person is
Right.
going through was really great.
Thank you.
So, imagery of swimming underwater and using water as a visual element in your story is particularly striking. But
Mhm.
shooting underwater must be a very challenging ordeal for you. Would
Yeah.
you like to share your experience regarding that, like how underwater shooting and
Sure. It was definitely the most challenging aspect of shooting Kanya, but I think it was also something I wanted to do. I wanted to push myself out of my comfort zone and, like, really learn the process of shooting underwater. So I spent about 2 years with my DOP, for us, really researching about how to go about it. We used sort of different kind of lenses underwater. We used
Mm,
anamorphic lens above the water, but under the water was spherical prime lenses, because what happens is, like, because of the refraction of light, uh, like, you have to if you would choose a normal 50 lens above the water, you'd probably have to go for 100 to achieve the same magnification. So we had to
okay.
do a little bit more research to understand
Mm,
how it works, what kind of lenses we
mm,
need to use. And of course, it comes down to sort of finding the right camera that can shoot high frame rate, because as you can see, it's all kind of poetic because it's shot in high frame rate, and because of which
Mm.
it's slow motion. But it's not easy to achieve that underwater, and still sort of maintain a good resolution of the film, so that it doesn't go below 2K. So we had to do a lot of calculations to understand that what is the highest frame rate we could go to, and how much light can we have, and how do we handle the refraction of light underwater. So there were a lot of kind of physics involved around this, so we had to do our research, consult with a lot of people who are experienced in this area. And of course, the funny part is my sister is not a swimmer, she doesn't know how to swim, so it was scary for her, but we still somehow managed to show as if she was a swimmer. So, and it basically, the entire film was shot in a 30 feet pool that was meant for teaching people who
Okay.
want to get a diving certificate. So what we actually did was, instead of shooting it like this, we shot the entire underwater sequence like this vertically,
Okay. So
and
the
then
depth
we
is,
expanded it
yeah.
in post.
Okay, okay, okay. So it's shot in India or?
Only the portion that we couldn't cheat as India was shot in India. The rest of it was shot in Prague. Like the temple sequence in the end was shot in Tiruvannamalai
Uh-huh.
behind Ramanashram.
Mhm.
So we managed to shoot it there, and then the rest of it was shot in Chennai, and all the underwater sequences were shot in Prague.
Okay, okay, okay. Great. So, Apoorva, through Kanya, you have started questioning gender stereotype.
Mhm.
Will we see similar kind of projects questioning the status quo and prejudice from you in future? Would you like
Uh,
to talk about them a bit?
Sure. Well, my debut feature film, which is currently getting ready for financing and pre-production, um, is again with like a woman-centric protagonist. Like the idea is that I do want to bring out the female gaze in filmmaking, because I do think there's a serious lack of female gaze when it comes to stories. So obviously my focus will be women-centric stories, but I don't necessarily want to kind of say that it would be a film that would question gender stereotype. It's just that, in my perspective, I think we've achieved that equality when it comes to on-screen, presence of female characters. Only when you have a female character, and it doesn't matter that she's a female, like when we can achieve that is when I feel like we've achieved real equality on screen. So that's what I'm aiming to do with my feature film. There is no protagonist in the film, although it is told from the perspective of a woman. It's an exploration of a father-daughter relationship, and both of them have kind of equal presence in the film. And again, it comes from personal experience, and it's an ode in a way to my father and my grandfather.
Oh, so all your films are derived from your own personal experiences and mostly
Yeah,
like, and you work on that, like you build story from there.
I think so, because that's the story. Like, first of all, I've experienced it, I've seen through it, so I would be the best person to tell that story.
Yes,
And
yes,
that, and in my perspective, every story that has to be told has already been said, and the
yes,
only difference in the way in it is how you tell the story.
yes.
And that how is what makes my perspective sort of unique when it comes from how I see a certain issue. And that's why I think I'm very strongly sort of looking for sort of personal experiences. I'm also working on a horror series, but it has nothing to do with my personal experience like directly. But what I remember is, growing up as a kid, I used to spend a lot of time with my grandmother, and we used to watch a lot of horror films from Hollywood a lot. So that memory had always been in my head, and I wanted to write a horror film that would be sort of like a gift to that experience. And I always look at films as a gift, because you can never satisfy people with your films. When you make a film, there are going to be 50 people who like it and 50 people who don't like it. So if I start focusing on that, I lose the essence of making the film. So I always look at each film as a gift. Kanya was a gift to myself and my mom. My feature film is going to be a gift to my dad. So it goes on.
Great. So we wish you all the very best for your
Thank you.
upcoming project,
Thank you
and
very
we
much.
look forward to see your debut film.
Absolutely, absolutely. Maybe there is a potential to collaborate with Oroville Film Festival again after the film is
Yes,
done.
yes, for sure.
Um,
And in your, yeah, I go through your document what you have sent. So you've been to Auroville for a couple of times. Sasi is your friend
yeah,
and family
he's a
friend.
very good family friend,
Yeah.
and I every time we visit Tiruvannamalai, there's all like I always make it a point to go to Pondicherry, and yeah,
So when
we
are you coming next to India and
I
Auroville?
will be in India between May to end of May to August. I have to do a little bit of location scout. In fact, I'm seriously looking at the possibility of shooting a little bit in Pondicherry for my feature. So
Okay.
I want to do a little bit of scouting there,
Okay.
and I pretty much grew up between Chennai, Tiruvannamalai, and Pondicherry because my childhood is all just the road trips
Around
to
that. Yeah.
around that. So yeah, I will definitely be there, and I'm going to reach out, and I'm sure
Yes,
Sasi is going to
yes.
be
It
there.
would
So
be our pleasure to meet you in person whenever you will
absolutely,
visit Auroville.
yes.
Thank you, Apurva, for your
Thank
time.
you very much. No
Thank
problem.
you. Thank you. Thank you. Great.
All right.
Great meeting you.